Hey everyone, I'm Cliff, and welcome back to some more So Dungeon. Well, not quite. So, yay, I figured out something else to talk about, but it's going to be another discussion-esque video, rather than actual So Dungeon gameplay. So we're back in my video editing, so Adobe Premium, and what I have here is an hour's worth of dungeon. So, just trucking along in the dungeon for an hour till we got to the green average right here. Ooh, there we go. And the reason I have this is I want to count the amount of times portals show up and the amount of times we take them. So every time we walk. So scouring through this whole hour, I counted 294 portals. So on average, in an hour, you will find 294 portals. Granted, you might find a bit less, you might find a bit more, but for the sake of this video, we're going to run off of 294, because I don't really want to do like 10 hours and count them all. That would be awful. Right, so the next part is a few different clips. So first off, when I tested animation speed, I had VSync off. So VSync caps your FPS at your monitor refresh rate. So for instance, with it off, you can get up to 240, though for whatever reason I can't consistently hit it. I set it around 230 to 235, which does mean my overall FPH is less than what is optimum. That's another thing. So anyway, first thing I did was I turned VSync back on. So I turned it on. I don't think I captured it. You can see it here though, so we're capped at 144. And this is important because now it means all my animation testing is equivalent, because they're all at 144. So for the sake of comparison, we've eliminated that variable and we can empirically say that they are all standardized and correct, which leads us to the next point I want to make. So I have this comp here, and this comp is a bit out there. So my wizard's in number 1, and all he does is cast Foretell. That is his only mission in life, and the reason for that is to make sure we have Foretell up 100% of the time. And the reason for this is this whole video. So we're gonna break down the animations and understand why this should be quicker overall. So the first thing I want to compare is the mining animation again. So since we're at 144 locked, we can still see that it is only 1 frame. So my mining setup where we strike, defend, strike to make sure we can take care of 3 enemy pods, which is 1 frame quicker than doing it the normal way, obviously, which is Phantasmal Claw, so you can deal with 2 enemies. So that's very important because it just reiterates the fact that that setup is the optimal setup. So you want to defend and strike rather than strike Phantasmal Claw, because it is 1 frame quicker, which obviously is impactful over the course of a whole run. The next thing though is actually on topic. So what do we have here? We have a wizard defending into the janitor striking. So if you can see him right there, the wizard's defending. And then this one is just a normal strike, so the janitor in position 1. Both of them are using 2 enemy pods, because that's the only way I could realistically show off the wizard defending accurately without, scouring through a huge amount and trying to get the chance event of you teleporting into a 1 pod room. So, 2 enemies, double strike, 2 enemies, double strike. But all we care about is the difference, because this chunk of frames is essentially the animation time for the wizard to defend and then move on to the janitor striking. So this is the first important thing, because we can count out these frames. So from the animation end, so from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the defend animation is an extra 7 frames at 144 FPS. I think it was stated at 12 frames, 1 frame for the animation, 12 frames for the lag between your next unit going. That math doesn't work out to me, because if you slow this down to 30 frames, it will be greater than that. And if you speed up to 240 frames, obviously it'll be less. But realistically saying 7 frames. 144, all we care about is a difference of 7 frames. So using the wizard to always foretell is 7 frames slower than not. This is very important, because from here, we can now work out a few things using that 294 portals an hour. So we're taking 294 portals per hour, means we're on average and roughly, very roughly, I don't want to overestimate, I'd rather underestimate, but we're warping 7,000 floors an hour. So if you were to click on this and swap it to the minus, you'd be in 2,700, 2,200 for your speed without warping. So that means every hour we're taking 7,000 floors. So if we divide 7,000 by that 294, we get our average warps per portal taken. This is very important for rationalizing the rest of the numbers. So if we divide the two, we get something like 23. So on average, every warp we take is skipping 23 floors. Why is this important? Well, if we go the other way and we take this extra 7 frames and we multiply it by the amount of times we would cast Foretell, so that number of 294, we get an extra 2,058 frames. So over the course of an hour, this defend animation will count for an extra 2,058 frames. So right now it is significantly slower. But that's the whole reason we worked out the warp average. So if we were to skip exactly 23 single strike rooms, and remember, we're not skipping single strike rooms, we're skipping every type of room, but this is the quickest you could clear, so this is going to be the smallest amount of frames gained. So if we were to skip 23 single strike rooms, we would recover 920 frames. So right now we're still under. The defend animation accounts for 2,058 frames, we're regaining 920 frames. So there's still a difference there that we haven't made up. So, in that sense, if this defend animation and having Foretell up 100% of the time got us 3 extra portals in an hour, we would be ahead in frames. So all we'd have to find is 3 extra portals. So to rationalize this further, what this defend animation is accounting for is a single fringe event. And that is where you were to warp, find a single target room, and then find another warp. So in that circumstance, with a normal comp where you're running the Sword in Space and Time first, your janitor would clear the single room. If you run the wizard before the janitor, casting Foretell, you would Foretell, and then the janitor would clear the room. So in this event, you would actually miss the warp, because your janitor has cleared the room before you can recast Foretell. You wouldn't cast Foretell until you get to a 2-target room. So, what we have to understand is how often does this happen? And to be honest, I've seen it happen as up to 10 times in a run, and I've seen it happen no times in an hour run. So, currently, we need it to happen 3 times for it to be faster. If we go the other way and we look at the slowest animation, mind you, it's not actually the slowest animation. The slowest animation would be an ambush room, but those can't really count for. This is more realistic. So the slowest room is a strike into Phantasmal Claw, and this is roughly 74 frames. From start to finish, it's 74 frames in total. So if we do the same thing and we multiply it by that 23, we get to 17,000 frames. So if you were to skip entirely 3 to 4 enemy rooms where you strike Phantasmal Claw, so realistically these make up, was it 2/4 of the overall rooms? No, it's a bit less. Was it? There's 4, it's 4 out of 10, so that's 3 out of 5. So 3/5, did I do that right? No, it's 2 out of 5, sorry. So 2/5 of the rooms in a 10-room link would be this slowest animation. So if you were to skip specifically those 2 types of rooms, you would recover 17,000 frames. And we're still under at that point, but the threshold is much less. So if we average the two, what it really means is we would need to find 1.5 portals that would appear from a warp, single target, warp room. If that makes sense. So if that chance event occurs more than 1.5 times in an hour's worth of run, this 100% Foretell comp is actually quicker. So statistically, from my viewing at least, I do believe it is quicker. I believe over the course of a 24-hour run, a week run, if you can obviously get it going that long, you will encounter enough of those fringe events for it to matter. And for that reason, and because the difference is only so slight, So remember, with single target rooms, you would need 3 of those portals. With Phantasmal Claw Strike rooms, you would need 1.5. So from all that testing and research, this is what I believe is the best applicable run. Mind you, if I had the Epic Rag Armor, I would put them both on the Huntresses, and then obviously stat resistance, make it completely 100% survivable. But in terms of accounting for every variable we want to control, this should be the quickest run. Your Wizard should just be foretelling and not doing anything else. Your Janitor should always be striking. The Sword in Space and Time is at the low end, a net 0, meaning the time it takes you to strike, you recover instantly through the 1 extra warp to a almost double speed up. Because if you're skipping a Phantasmal Claw Strike room, that's almost double the frames of a single strike room, therefore it's significantly quicker. So you should always, these 2 things are the most important things to always consistently do. You want to always have Foretell up off cooldown, and you always want to be hitting 1 unit every room with the Sword in Space and Time. After that, we have the Tavern Owner cleaning up with AoE, and then this Huntress is designed for the 2 enemy 1 ore rooms, so that you can strike, defend, strike, which is still quicker than strike Phantasmal Claw, as we have shown over and over. So what about the scripts? Well, I have to separate it into 4 different scripts. So the Sword in Space and Time is very simple, is an ore, default attack. The Wizard is also very simple. This is your HP threshold. We're making him defend, because he's just defending anyway, so it's not any time loss there. Overall, I mean. And then just Foretell any. So as soon as Foretell's off cooldown, he's going to cast it, as long as no one in your party is less than 30%. The thresholds you can adjust as needed. And then the Tavern Owner is our 2 enemy script. So if there's more than 2 enemies, he'll Phantasmal Claw. If there's less than 2, he will check if there's ore and defend. If not, he will use Phantasmal Claw to clean up the enemies. Then if he does defend, the Huntress gets a turn to attack, so that one's simple again. It just isn't ore, because the only time the Huntress will default to an attack is when there is a 1 enemy, 1 ore node left, and the Tavern Owner defends. So that's all you need, those 3 scripts. And again, statistically, it should be quicker in the long run. In short bursts, you're probably still better off, at least if you watch your FPH closely, you're better off as the previous run. But again, I will strongly advocate that I believe through testing and running the statistics and thinking about the odds, this should be the overall fastest run in a long extended period. Anyway, I'm really glad I could spend some time mulling over this. It was fun to figure out.